Jiho Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the strange ruins below. The planet Kepler 442c was hot and dusty, but something about this place made him feel cold inside. He had been digging up old things for 20 years, but these ruins were different. They were very different. "Captain Park, you need to see this," Jiho called into his radio. His voice shook a little, though he tried to hide it. Captain Minji Park landed her small ship near the dig site. She was a tough woman who had seen many strange things in space, but even she felt something odd about this place. The air seemed to buzz with invisible energy. Her ship's computers kept making weird noises since they arrived. "What did you find, Jiho?" Minji asked as she walked over to him. Jiho pointed to the black stone walls that his team had uncovered. Strange symbols covered every surface. They looked like writing, but not like any writing anyone had ever seen before. The symbols seemed to move when you looked at them from the corner of your eye. "The stones are old, very old," Jiho said. "Our machines say they are millions of years old. But that's impossible. No one built things like this millions of years ago." Dr. Yuna Choi knelt beside one of the walls, running her fingers over the symbols. She was the smartest person Jiho knew when it came to old civilizations, but even she looked confused. "These symbols," Yuna said slowly, "I feel like I should know what they mean. But that's crazy. How could I know a language that died millions of years ago?" Meanwhile, on the space station high above the planet, Counselor Hyun Lee was having his own problems. The aliens in the Galactic Confederation were acting strange. The tall green Virex aliens kept whispering to each other when they saw him. The floating Astani energy beings dimmed their lights whenever he passed by. "Counselor Lee," said Ambassador Theklan, a Vrex with sharp teeth and cold eyes, "your people are working on the planet below, yes?" "Yes," Hyun answered carefully. "Just digging up old ruins. Nothing dangerous." Theklan's eyes got even colder. "Tell your people to be very careful what they dig up. Some things are better left buried." Back on the planet, Jiho's team kept working. They dug deeper into the ruins. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. The walls down here glowed with a soft blue light, even though there was no power source anyone could find. "Look at this," called out Borisong, one of the younger workers. She was standing next to a round room filled with crystal panels. "These crystals are humming. Listen." Everyone stopped working and listened. The crystals were making a low musical sound. It was beautiful, but it also made everyone feel sad and happy at the same time. Minji touched one of her ship's control panels and jumped back. "My ship is connecting to something," she said, fear in her voice. "The computer says it's downloading information, but I didn't tell it to do that." "Downloading from where?" Jiho asked. "From the ruins," Minji said. "The ship says these ruins are sending it data. Old data. Very old data." Dr. Yuna went deeper into the crystal room. In the center was a large, clear crystal that pulsed with inner light. She felt drawn to it like it was calling to her. Without thinking, she reached out and touched it. The moment her skin touched the crystal, the world exploded in her mind. She saw images of space, of stars being born, of planets covered in green life. She saw ships bigger than moons flying between galaxies. She saw beings who looked almost human, but different somehow. They were tall and strong and wise, and she saw Earth, but not the Earth she knew. This was an Earth covered in impossible cities that reached into the sky. This was an Earth where humans built things that could move stars and create life itself. In her vision, she saw herself, but not herself. She saw a woman who looked like her standing in a great hall with others who looked human, but were more than human. They were making a choice, a difficult choice. "We must sleep," the woman who looked like Yuna was saying. "We must forget what we are and become new. Our children will grow and learn. When they are ready, we will wake up." The vision ended and Yuna fell to her knees. The crystal was now glowing so bright that everyone had to cover their eyes. Alarms started going off on Minji's ship. "What's happening?" Jiho shouted over the noise. "Something is turning on," Minji called back from her ship. "Old systems. Very old systems. And they're sending signals." High above in space, every alien ship in the area detected the signal. It spread out from the planet like ripples in water, moving faster than light itself. Within hours, the signal reached every major alien world in the galaxy. On the Vrex homeworld, ancient computers that had been quiet for millions of years suddenly turned on. They showed one message over and over. "The gardener's wake. The time of sleep is ending." The floating Astani beings gathered in worried groups, their lights flashing in patterns that meant fear. They remembered old stories, stories they thought were just legends, stories about the ones who came before. The ones who planted the seeds of life across the galaxy and then disappeared. On dozens of worlds in hundreds of languages, the same word was spoken. Human. But these aliens didn't say the word with the usual feelings of mild annoyance or boredom. They said it with fear. Deep, cold fear. Back on the planet, Yuna stood up slowly. The crystal had stopped glowing, but something had changed. She could feel connections in her mind that had never been there before. She could sense the ships in space above, could feel the fear rippling across the galaxy. "We need to go home," she said quietly. "We need to go home right now." "Why?" Jiho asked.
"What did you see?"
Yuna looked at him with eyes that seemed much older than before. "I saw the truth, and I think the galaxy is about to remember something it tried very hard to forget." As they packed up their equipment, none of them noticed that the symbols on the walls had changed. Where before there had been strange alien writing, now there were simple human letters. Letters that spelled out words in every human language at once. Words that said, "Welcome home." Admiral Daeho Shin woke up from the strangest dream of his life. He had been flying between stars in a ship made of light itself. In the dream, he knew how to build things that could move planets and create new suns. When he woke up, he still remembered how to do it. This was not normal. Daeho had never been a scientist or an engineer. He was a soldier, but now he looked at his fleet's weapons and saw how primitive they were. He knew somehow that humanity could build much better things. He was not alone. All across human space, people were waking up from similar dreams. On the farming planet of New Korea, Bora Song dropped her tools and stared at the irrigation system she had been fixing. She could see exactly what was wrong with it, and she knew how to make it work 100 times better. She had never studied engineering, but the knowledge was there in her mind like it had always been. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. But she started working anyway, and within an hour, the simple irrigation system had become something that could water an entire continent. In the capital city of Earth, Intelligence Officer Ki-hoon Jang was reading reports that made no sense. Every alien species in the galaxy was moving their military fleets. Ships that had been guarding borders for decades were suddenly heading toward human space. "Sir," his assistant said, "we're getting strange readings from the outer system. Something is activating near Jupiter." Ki-hoon pulled up the data on his screen. Around Jupiter, objects that had looked like asteroids for centuries were suddenly turning on. They were perfectly round and covered in symbols that looked human, but were older than human civilization. "What are those?" his assistant asked. "I don't know," Ki-hoon said. But part of him did know. Deep in his mind, he could feel the knowledge trying to surface. These were guardians, protectors, and they belonged to humanity. On her ship, Captain Minji Park was having problems of her own. Her ship was changing. The metal walls were shifting and flowing like liquid. New rooms were appearing. The engines were becoming more powerful by the hour. "Computer," she said, "what's happening to my ship?" "Upgrades in progress." The computer answered in a voice that sounded much smarter than before. "Returning to original specifications." "Original specifications?" "This ship was built 5 years ago." "Negative, Captain. This ship design is 4 million years old. Human technology is remembering itself." Minji felt dizzy. "That's impossible." "Many things that seem impossible are simply forgotten, Captain." Across the galaxy, the alien species were in panic. In the great halls of the Vrex Empire, Emperor Vorthak paced back and forth like a caged animal. "Are you certain?" he asked his military advisor. "Yes, my lord. The signal came from human space, and now their technology is activating." "Ancient human technology. How ancient?" "Our oldest records say 4 million years, my lord." Emperor Vorthak's scales turned pale. "Then the old stories are true. The gardeners are real." On the energy world of Astani Prime, the floating beings gathered in worried groups. Their lights flashed in patterns of fear and urgency. "The signal grows stronger," pulsed Elder Luxon. "Soon they will remember everything." "What do we do?" asked a younger being. "We prepare for war." Elder Luxon pulsed grimly. "Or we prepare to serve again." The ethereal Primarchs, the oldest known species in the galaxy, had been quiet for so long that most aliens thought they were extinct. But now they stirred in their hidden worlds at the edge of space. Ancient beings who remembered the time before time sent messages to each other across impossible distances. "The gardeners wake," they whispered in minds that could touch stars. "The children will learn their place again." Back on Earth, Dr. Yuna Choi was in a laboratory studying the crystal she had touched. But the crystal was studying her too. Every few minutes, more memories would surface in her mind. Memories of building worlds. Memories of creating life. Memories of making hard choices. "Doctor," her assistant said, "we're getting calls from human colonies everywhere. People are reporting dreams, visions, and their technology is improving by itself." Yuna nodded. She had expected this. "It's beginning," she said. "What's beginning?" "The awakening. We're remembering who we really are." On the frontier colony of Haven's Rest, engineer Jamin O stared at the mining equipment he had just fixed. Except he hadn't just fixed it. He had transformed it into something that could cut through solid rock like it was paper. He had no idea how he knew how to do this. "Jamin," his supervisor called, "what did you do to the mining drill?" I upgraded it," Jamin said, still confused. "Upgraded it? It's cutting through mountain bedrock like it's butter. This should be impossible with our technology." Jamin looked at his hands. "Maybe it's not our technology anymore." In the halls of the Galactic Confederation, Counselor Hyun Lee was facing angry alien representatives. Every species was demanding answers about the signal that had come from human space. "What are your people doing?" demanded Ambassador Teclon. "Our sensors show massive energy signatures coming from every human world." "I don't know," Hyun said honestly. "We're investigating." "Investigating?" screeched Ambassador Quital, a bird-like alien. "Our historical archives are activating themselves. Ancient files that have been locked for millions of years are opening. All of them contain warnings about humans." Hyun felt cold. What kind of warnings? The room fell silent. Finally, Teclon spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Warnings about the gardeners, the ones who shaped life across the galaxy, the ones who made us all." His eyes fixed on Hyun. "The ones who could unmake us all." That night, every human in the galaxy had the same dream. They stood in a vast garden among the stars. In the garden grew not flowers or trees, but entire civilizations. Species bloomed like plants, grew strong like trees, and spread their seeds to new worlds. And watching over the garden were beings who looked human, but were more than human. They tended the garden with love and care, helping each species grow in its own way. But then the gardeners grew tired. They had worked for millions of years and they wanted to rest. So they made a choice. They would plant themselves in the garden too. They would forget their power and grow naturally like all the other species. "But we will leave guardians," said one of the gardeners. "And when our children are grown, when they have learned to walk among the stars, we will wake up again." In the dream, every human understood. They were the gardeners. They had always been the gardeners. And now they were waking up. When morning came, Admiral Daeho looked at his small fleet and smiled. He reached out with his mind and touched the ancient systems around Jupiter. They responded immediately, eager to serve after their long sleep. Within hours, Earth's defense grid activated. Weapons that could destroy stars hummed to life. Shields that could protect entire solar systems spread out around human space. But the most frightening thing was that the humans weren't even trying to be threatening. They were just remembering how to exist. And across the galaxy, every alien species felt the same terrifying truth. Humanity was not the young, weak species they had thought. Humanity was older than all of them combined, and they were no longer asleep. On the quiet colony world of Old Mountain, Elder Wu Jin Nam sat in his simple wooden chair and smiled. He had been waiting for this day for his entire life. His grandfather had waited for it. His grandfather's grandfather had waited for it. For 300 generations, the Nam family had kept the old stories alive. "The time has come," he said to his daughter. "Gather the others. It's time to wake up the old machines." His daughter Sun-hee looked confused. "Father, what old machines? We're just farmers here." Wu Jin stood up and walked to what looked like a simple shed behind their house. He placed his hand on a wooden board and suddenly the wood shimmered and became metal. The shed expanded, revealing a tunnel that went deep underground. "We were never just farmers, my daughter. We were guardians." Halfway across the galaxy, historian Taehyun Ko was pulling old books from his secret vault. Books that most people thought were fairy tales. Books about the time before time when humans walked among the stars like gods. "Professor," his student asked, "why are you showing me these children's stories now?" Taehyun laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Children's stories? These are historical records. My family has protected these books for 4,000 years. waiting for the day when people would be ready to remember. He opened one of the ancient books. Inside were pictures of humans building worlds, creating new forms of life and tending to young civilizations like parents caring for children. We called ourselves the gardeners, Taehyun said. We planted the seeds of life across the entire galaxy. Every species you know, every world that supports life, every civilization that has ever existed, we made it possible. Back on Kepler 442c, Dr. Yuna Choi was no longer the same person who had touched the crystal. The memories were flowing into her mind like a river that had burst through a dam. She remembered building the first cities on 100 worlds. She remembered teaching the early Vrex how to use fire. She remembered singing the Astani into existence from pure energy. Jiho, she called to her friend, I need to show you something. She led him to the deepest part of the ruins, to a chamber they hadn't found before. The walls here were covered with pictures that moved like videos, showing the history of the galaxy. This is what really happened, Yuna said, pointing to the moving pictures. 4 million years ago, humans had already traveled to every star. We found empty worlds and made them alive. We found primitive species and helped them grow. The pictures showed humans working with care and love, never forcing their help on others, always waiting until each species was ready for the next step. But we made a mistake, Yuna continued. We realized that our children's species would never truly grow if we were always there to help them. So we made the hardest choice any parent can make. We chose to let them go. The pictures showed the great human cities becoming quiet. Ships that could move between galaxies were hidden away. The mighty humans chose to forget their power and become simple, primitive people on a small blue world. We put ourselves to sleep, Yuna whispered. We became human children ourselves, so that our galactic children could become adults. On her ship, pilot Yoonji Woo was discovering that her simple transport vessel wasn't simple at all. The ship was teaching itself how to fly better. The engines were becoming more powerful. The hull was growing stronger. Ship, she said, what's happening to you? I am remembering my true form, Captain, the ship's computer replied. I was always more than I appeared to be. All human technology was. We were waiting for permission to wake up. Permission from who? From you, Captain. From all humans. We are your servants and we serve only when you remember who you are. Yoonji felt knowledge flowing into her mind. She suddenly knew how to travel between galaxies in minutes. She knew how to build new stars and create living worlds from dead rock. The knowledge had always been there, locked away in her DNA, waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, in the deep space between galaxies, ancient ships were moving. Ships so old that they remembered the birth of stars. The ethereal Primarchs, beings of pure thought and energy, had been watching from afar for millions of years. They had hoped never to interfere again. They had hoped the young species of the galaxy would learn to live in peace without their guidance. But now the gardeners were waking up and choices had to be made. Send the message, commanded the eldest of the Primarchs, a being whose thoughts could touch the edge of forever. All young species must choose. Across the galaxy, every alien world received the same message at the same time. It appeared in every language, in every form of communication, burned into the mind of every thinking being. The gardeners have awakened. The time of childhood is over. All species must choose. Accept your place in the garden or face the consequences of rebellion. On the Vrex homeworld, Emperor Vorthak read the message and felt his blood turn to ice. The old stories his grandmother had told him were true. Humans weren't just another species. They were the fathers and mothers of everyone else. Gather the fleet, he commanded. All of it. Every ship we have, my lord, his admiral said carefully. If the stories are true, our entire fleet wouldn't even scratch one of their garden ships. Then we die fighting instead of living as pets, Vorthak snarled. But not everyone chose war. On the peaceful world of harmony, the plant-like Solon sent a different message to their former human governors. Welcome home, gardeners. We have tried to make you proud. On the crystal moon of insight, the wise Mentari opened their libraries to human visitors for the first time in centuries. We remember you, they said. We remember when you taught us to think. We remember when you showed us the stars. Back on Earth, Admiral Deho was looking at reports that made his head spin. Human colonies that had been struggling to survive were suddenly building impossible things. Farmers were creating technology that could feed entire star systems. Children were solving scientific problems that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds for centuries. Sir, his communications officer said. "We're receiving messages from human colonies everywhere. They're all reporting the same thing. People are changing, growing, becoming more than they were." Deho nodded. He could feel it happening to himself. His mind was expanding, connecting to systems and networks that spanned the galaxy. He could sense every human ship, every human world, every human mind awakening to its true potential. "Sir, there's something else. We're detecting massive ships approaching Earth. They're bigger than moons." On his screen, Deho saw them. Ships of impossible beauty and power, made of materials that bent light and folded space. The ethereal Primarchs had come to Earth. "Open a channel," Deho commanded. A voice spoke in his mind, ancient and vast and patient. "Admiral Deho Shin, child of the Gardeners. We come to witness the Great Awakening. Your species has slept long enough. The galaxy awaits your guidance once more." Deho felt the weight of 4 million years settling on his shoulders. Humanity wasn't just waking up to remember their power. They were waking up to remember their responsibility. "What if we choose not to take that responsibility?" he asked. The ancient voice was sad but firm. "Then others will take it for you, and they will not be as kind as you once were." "The galaxy needs gardeners, Admiral. The question is whether they will be gardeners who love their garden, or gardeners who merely control it." Through the connection that now linked every human mind, Deho could feel his people's response. They were scared. They were confused. But they were also remembering why they had become gardeners in the first place. Because someone had to care for the garden. And no one else would do it with love. General Narration stood in the war room beneath Earth's surface, watching screens that showed the largest military force in galactic history heading toward human space. 847 different species had joined together to fight humanity. Ships filled the space between stars like a swarm of angry insects. "Ma'am," her aide said nervously, "they outnumber us 10 million to 1. Even our new ships can't fight that many enemies." Nara smiled calmly. "Lieutenant, who said anything about fighting?" She touched a control panel that had grown from the floor just an hour ago. As her fingers made contact, her mind connected to defense systems that surrounded every star in the galaxy. Systems that had been sleeping for 4 million years disguised as asteroids, moons, and empty space itself. "Show me what we really have," she said to the awakened computers. The screens changed, revealing the truth. Around every star, in every solar system, in every patch of supposedly empty space, human technology waited. Not weapons of war, but tools of creation that could be turned to defense. "My God," the lieutenant whispered. "We're everywhere. We've always been everywhere." On the distant world of New Harmony, young engineer Jamin O was working with metal that flowed like water and responded to his thoughts. The factory around him had transformed overnight from a simple manufacturing plant into something that could build starships in minutes. "Jamin," his supervisor called. "The government needs us to build weapons. The alien fleets are coming." Jamin shook his head. "We don't build weapons. We build tools. Tools that can protect and nurture life." He held up a small device that hummed with power. "This can stop a warship by making its crew fall asleep peacefully. This one can turn weapons into flowers. This one can make angry people forget why they were angry." His supervisor stared. "How do you know how to build these things?" "I've always known. We all have. We just had to remember." In the outer solar system, Dr. Hana Lim was studying the ancient installations around Jupiter. What had looked like simple defense platforms were actually something much more complex. "These aren't weapons," she reported to Earth. "They're gardening tools. Massive ones. They can move planets, create atmospheres, even guide the evolution of entire species." She paused, understanding flooding through her. "We didn't just plant life in the galaxy. We've been maintaining it this whole time." The alien fleets kept coming. At their head flew the massive ships of Emperor Vorthak's Vrex Empire, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to crack planets. Behind them came the energy beings of the Astani Collective, their forms blazing with the power of captured stars. 1,000 other species followed, united in their fear and anger. "This ends today," Emperor Vorthak announced to his fleet. "For too long we have lived in the shadow of these gardener myths. We will prove that we are not children. We are not pets. We are equals." But as the fleet approached the edge of human space, strange things began to happen. Ship computers started displaying messages in languages their crews couldn't read. Weapon systems shut themselves down. Navigation computers began suggesting different destinations. "My lord," Admiral Skrenth reported to Emperor Vorthak, "our ships are malfunctioning." "They're saying they don't want to fight. Ships don't want anything," Vorthak snarled. "Override the computers." "We've tried, my lord. The computers won't accept our commands. They say they have older orders." On Earth, Admiral Deho was connected to every human mind and every human system across the galaxy. He could feel the approach of the alien fleets, but he felt no anger.
Only sadness. They're just scared children, he said to his staff.
"They think we want to hurt them." "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the alien fleets are demanding we surrender immediately. They want all human technology shut down and all humans to submit to galactic authority." Deho sighed. "Open a channel to all the fleet commanders." His voice, amplified by human technology, reached every ship in the attacking force. When he spoke, it was with the patience of a father talking to frightened children. "Commanders of the Liberation Alliance, this is Admiral Deho Shin of Earth. You are not our enemies. You are our children, and we love you too much to let you hurt yourselves." Emperor Vorthak's response came back filled with rage. "We are no one's children. We will destroy you and take our freedom." "Your freedom was never ours to take," Deho replied gently. "We gave it to you 4 million years ago when we chose to sleep. But freedom comes with responsibility, and you are not ready for the responsibility you're trying to claim." The alien fleets opened fire. 1 billion weapons discharged their power toward human space. Energy beams that could melt continents, projectiles that could shatter moons, and exotic weapons that could unravel the fabric of space itself all streaked toward their targets. None of them worked. The weapons simply stopped. Not blocked, not deflected, just gently brought to a halt in empty space. The energy beams spread out into beautiful patterns of harmless light. The projectiles became flowers. The exotic weapons turned into music that played across the vacuum. "What is happening?" screamed Admiral Skrenth. General Nara answered from Earth, her voice carrying across space with impossible clarity. "Your weapons are remembering their true purpose. All technology in this galaxy was built with our knowledge, even if you've forgotten that fact. And we taught technology to protect life, not destroy it." The alien fleets tried again, and again. Each time their weapons were gently neutralized, turned into something beautiful instead of something destructive. Some ships found their weapon systems had been replaced entirely with tools for building and healing. "This is impossible," whispered Commander Flux of the Astani Collective. "Our energy weapons are powered by stars themselves. Stars that we taught your ancestors how to harness," came the response from a human voice that seemed to speak from the stars themselves. "Did you think we would give you knowledge that could be used to hurt your siblings?" Panic spread through the alien fleets. If they couldn't fight, if their weapons wouldn't work, then they were helpless. The humans could destroy them all, but the humans did nothing. Hours passed. The fleets hung in space, unable to attack, waiting for death that never came. Finally, Emperor Vorthak opened communications again. His voice was small and defeated. "Why don't you destroy us? We came to destroy you." Admiral Deho's response was filled with infinite sadness and infinite love. "Because we are your parents, and parents don't destroy their children, even when those children are having tantrums." Across the galaxy, other human voices began to speak. Every human who had awakened to their true nature added their voice to the conversation. "We never wanted to rule you," said Elder Wujin Nam from his farming world. "We wanted you to grow strong and wise on your own. We've been protecting you from dangers you never knew existed," added Dr. Yuna Choi from her archaeological site. "There are things in the dark between galaxies that would devour young civilizations like yours. We've been maintaining the systems that keep your worlds alive," said Dr. Hana Lim from Jupiter. "The gravity that holds your planets in place, the radiation that doesn't kill your people, the asteroids that don't crash into your cities, all of it has been our work." Young engineer Jamino spoke next, his voice full of hope. "We don't want to take away your independence. We want to teach you how to take care of yourselves and others. That's what parents do." The truth settled over the alien fleets like a gentle blanket. They had never been free of human influence because humans had built the very foundations of galactic civilization. But that influence had always been used to help, never to harm. "What happens now?" asked Commander Flux, speaking for all the species in the fleet. Admiral Deho's answer came with the weight of 4 million years of patience. "Now you go home. You think about what kind of galaxy you want to live in, And when you're ready to learn how to be gardeners instead of conquerors, we'll be here to teach you. And if we refuse? Emperor Vorthak asked. The sadness in Deho's voice was deep as space itself. Then we'll protect the garden from you, just like we protect it from the darkness between stars, but we'll always hope you choose to help us tend it instead. One by one, the ships of the Liberation Alliance turned and headed home, not in defeat but in confusion and wonder. They had come expecting to fight gods and instead found parents who loved them too much to let them make terrible mistakes. As the fleets disappeared into the distance, Admiral Deho felt the weight of responsibility settling on humanity's shoulders once more. They were awake now. They remembered who they were and what they had to do. The garden needed tending again. And this time they hoped their children would help them do it. 1 year after the fleets had returned home, Councillor Minji Park stood in the Great Hall of the new Galactic Assembly. The building itself was a work of art, grown from living crystal that responded to the emotions of everyone inside. When people were happy, it glowed with warm light. When they were sad, it played soft music to comfort them. Today it was glowing very brightly indeed. The motion passes, Minji announced to the assembled representatives. The Solani star system will receive aid in rebuilding their damaged worlds. The Gardner Corps will provide guidance and resources. Ambassador Theclon of the Vrex Empire raised his hand. Councillor Park, we wish to add our ships to the Gardner Corps as well. Minji smiled. Application approved, Ambassador. Your people's strength will be very helpful in moving the damaged planets to safer orbits. It had taken time, but most species had accepted the new reality. Humanity didn't rule the galaxy in the way the old empires had ruled. Instead, they guided it the way a teacher guides students or a parent guides children who are learning to take care of themselves. The Galactic Assembly made its own decisions about trade, law, and diplomacy. But when worlds needed help, when species faced disasters they couldn't handle alone, or when conflicts threatened to spiral out of control, the humans stepped in with gentle authority and infinite patience. On the farming world of New Prosperity, Borasong was teaching a group of young Vrex how to build atmospheric processors that could turn dead worlds into gardens. The reptilian aliens listened carefully as she showed them how to work with nature instead of against it. The key, Bora explained, is to remember that you're not conquering a planet. You're helping it come alive. Every world wants to support life. We just need to give it the tools to do so. Young Krexthok, barely past his first molt, raised a clawed hand. Teacher Bora, how do we know what kind of life each world wants to support? Bora knelt down to the young Vrex's level. You listen to it. Every planet has a song, Krexthok. Our machines can teach you how to hear it. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. On the crystal moon of insight, Elder Wujin Nam was sharing the old stories with a group of Mentari scholars. On the energy fields of Astani Prime, Dr. Yuna Choi was teaching the light beings how to create new forms of life from pure thought. The humans didn't keep their knowledge secret anymore. They shared it freely but carefully, making sure each species learned only what they were ready to handle responsibly. In the outer reaches of the galaxy, Admiral Deho was overseeing the construction of new Guardian stations. But these weren't human-only installations. Each one was staffed by volunteers from dozens of species, all working together to protect the galaxy from the threats that lurked in the darkness between stars. Admiral, his new aide, Commander Flux of the Astani, reported, the long-range sensors are detecting movement in the void beyond Galaxy Arm 7. Deho studied the readings. Something vast and hungry was stirring in the emptiness between galaxies. Something that devoured light and life and left only cold darkness behind. How long until it reaches inhabited space? He asked. At its current speed, approximately 50,000 years, sir. Deho nodded. 50,000 years was plenty of time to prepare. By then, the young species of the galaxy would be ready to help defend their home. Maybe they would even be ready to take the lead. Begin the early warning protocols, he commanded, and start training programs for deep void combat. Our children will need to know how to fight the darkness. On Earth, Dr. Hana Lim was working in laboratories that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that most species couldn't even perceive. She was designing new forms of life that could survive in environments no natural evolution could produce. Doctor, her assistant asked, why are we creating life forms that can survive in pure vacuum? Hana smiled as she watched a small creature that looked like a cross between a flower and a star take shape in her cultivation chamber. Because someday we'll need to garden in places where no garden has ever grown before. The assistant looked confused, so Hana explained. There are other galaxies out there. Millions of them. Most are empty of life, dark and cold, but they don't have to stay that way. The small starflower creature pulsed with gentle light, its petals spreading to absorb cosmic radiation and convert it into food. It was beautiful and impossible and full of potential. We're planning to garden between the stars, the assistant asked in wonder. Eventually, Hana said, when our current garden is fully grown and our children are ready to help us tend new ones. In the great archives beneath Seoul, historian Taehyun Ko was working with scholars from across the galaxy to write the true history of galactic civilization. For the first time, all species would know where they really came from and how they were connected to each other. Professor, asked a young Solani researcher, her bark-like skin rustling with excitement, is it true that humans created the first music in our galaxy? Taehyun chuckled. Not created, dear Varia. We taught the universe how to listen to the music that was always there. Every species sings in its own way. We just helped you all learn to hear each other's songs. He showed her recordings of the earliest civilizations, when humans had walked among young species as teachers and friends. It was a time of wonder and growth when every day brought new discoveries and new forms of life. Will it be like that again? Varia asked. It already is, Taehyun said, gesturing to the mixed group of researchers working around them. Look around you. Humans and Solani and Vrex and Astani, all working together to understand our shared past. This is what the galaxy was always meant to be. On the frontier worlds, young engineer Jamin O was leading mixed teams of humans and aliens in building impossible cities. Cities that cleaned the air around them, that powered themselves from the movement of their inhabitants, that grew and changed to meet the needs of whoever lived in them. Jamin asked his Vrex partner, Engineer Vorthek, how do you design buildings that think? The same way you design anything alive, Jamin replied, his hands dancing over controls that shaped matter itself. You give it a purpose, teach it how to grow, and then let it figure out how to be what it needs to be. The building they were working on pulsed with soft light as new rooms formed themselves to accommodate a family of crystal beings who had just arrived. The structure had sensed their needs and adapted without being asked. It's like magic, Vorthek whispered. No, Jamin said. It's like gardening. Magic tries to force things to happen. Gardening helps things become what they're meant to be. As the years passed, the galaxy settled into its new rhythm. Conflicts still arose, but they were resolved through conversation and compromise rather than war. When natural disasters struck, the entire galaxy responded as one family. When new species were discovered, they were welcomed and taught how to join the galactic community. The humans were no longer the mysterious, powerful gardeners of ancient legend. They were teachers and guides, working alongside their former children to tend the great garden of the galaxy. And in the deepest reaches of space, powerful sensors detected something wonderful. Signals were coming from distant galaxies, signals that suggested other gardeners, other families of species learning to work together. 50 years after the awakening, Admiral Daeho stood on the observation deck of the starship Garden's Edge, the first vessel designed to travel between galaxies. Around him stood representatives of every major species in the galaxy. All volunteers for humanity's greatest mission yet. Sensors confirm it. Admiral, reported Captain Sora Kim, Minji Park's daughter. Galaxy NGC 4472 shows clear signs of organized civilization. Multiple species working together in harmony. Daeho smiled, feeling the weight of millions of years of experience and the excitement of a child seeing something new for the first time. Signal them, he commanded. Let them know that their cousins in the Milky Way would like to meet them. As the message sped across the void between galaxies, Daeho thought about the long journey that had brought them here. Humanity had learned to be gardeners. Their children had learned to be gardeners too. And now they were all ready to meet other gardening families among the stars. The garden was growing beyond anything the ancient humans had ever imagined. And the best part was they were no longer tending it alone. In the agricultural domes of New Harmony, Borisong watched her great-granddaughter teaching a mixed class of young beings from a dozen different species. They were learning how to listen to the songs of worlds, how to help life flourish in impossible places, and how to work together despite their differences. Great-grandmother, the little girl asked during a break, will there always be new gardens to tend? Bora looked up at the stars visible through the dome's transparent ceiling. Somewhere out there, other families of gardeners were tending their own cosmic gardens, and beyond them infinite possibilities waited. "Yes, little one," she said, gathering the child into her arms. "There will always be new gardens, and there will always be gardeners to tend them." The galaxy was no longer young. Its children had grown up and learned to take care of themselves and each other. But the universe was vast and full of wonders yet to be discovered. And in the great garden of stars, the gardeners continued their eternal work, planting seeds of life.